From a flightless simulator at Ferris Air to a momentous meeting in an alley, to the complex mind of an architect, to every far sector in space, and to the brilliance of the central power battery on Oa. This is the podcast that covers the adventures of all of your favorite ring slingers. This is the Emerald Echo with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of Emerald Echo, a Green Lantern podcast and vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, the Emerald Enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
What's up, everyone? It's the man whose ring runs on fanboy energy. It is the Emerald Enthusiast, back to give you all of the happenings in the Green Lantern universe.
And we've got some things to talk about. It's always fun to talk about Green Lantern comics and news and everything. So you know, it's good to be back with you, Donnie, and we are doing a little bit of videoless recording today, but I'm sure as you're listening to this, Donnie's, or if you're watching, excuse me, on YouTube, Donnie's put up some nice visuals for you to look at while you listen to our discussion.
There are still plenty of things to get to.
Absolutely. And so let's get to them. What do we got news-wise, Donnie?
Well, number one, let's start by talking about Green Lantern number 600, the anniversary issue that is coming out in March 2026. It's going to be an oversized issue that's going to feature several storylines, but one of which is Kyle Rayner returning to Earth, taking up the Green Lantern mantle once again and getting back to life in LA.
Yeah, that's exciting.
We'll also feature the return of two very familiar names to Green Lantern fans, Ron Mars and Daryl Banks.
I mean, I think that's how you and I got started on the book. So this is exciting news to have Kyle back in you know, as seemingly a lead in the book, right?
Yes.
And then,
now, the press release also says that Hal Jordan faces his greatest test yet as a new Lantern stands ready to step up if he fails. Also, Guy Gardner discovers his new all-sight powers, assembling a team to hunt vanished emotional entities. So it's not going to be all about Kyle, but at the same time, it looks like Hal and Guy will be off Earth doing some other things, taking care of other business.
which I'm sure we'll see in the book, or
Yes.
and issues to come. But it's nice that which is great, because I'm, you know, as we've talked about every time we've reviewed this book, we're enjoying.
Yes, and many variant covers for this issue, and I can't wait to pick them all up.
Yeah, but but it is kind of a full circle moment, even for us, in the sense that, you know, we got together based on our admiration for the when Kyle was leading the book, and when Ron and Daryl were steering the ship, and so it's cool that it's kind of full circle kind of moment happening here, which is great. And so as you know, Donnie, and maybe some of our listeners and viewers know, Green Lantern has been a digital purchase for me for a while, but with issue 600 I'm going to put it back in the physical pull list rotation.
Well, I think that's a good decision. And also, you know, it was 12 years ago, I told myself I'll absolutely not start collecting variant covers. I have too many comics. And then that went right by the wayside. And now I can't wait to pick up all the alternate Green Lantern covers that I can. So when a variant cover hits, I always try to pick it up. And
So you lied to yourself, is what you're saying.
yeah, exactly. Lying to myself.
So that's exciting news.
Yeah. It's kind of like, when I'm sitting home on the weekends and getting ready for hockey night in Canada, and I'm like, yeah, the Leafs have a chance in this game, and then after it, I'm like, no, they didn't. So
yeah,
that's a different podcast.
I stayed up for that mess last night.
I got up for it.
God help me. You know, should have known better.
In case you're tuning in for the first time, Adam and I root for the same hockey team, and it is a demoralizing experience quite often.
Yeah. You know, they wear blue, and blue is supposedly the color of hope. Lied to by
not when you're
DC.
on the ice, it isn't.
I feel lied to by DC Comics and the writers of Green Lantern who came up with the.
Yeah, I feel more like Nathan Broom.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Sorrow abound. But that's, as you said, another podcast. But yeah, incredibly excited for issue 600, and also Kyle's return and the return of Daryl and Ron to the book. What else we got news-wise, Donnie?
Well, of course, the news starts to trickle out about lanterns. We're hearing a lot of rumors, many of which are unconfirmed at this point. But we did see 11 seconds of footage. I have scoured for many interviews, and I haven't heard anything earth-shattering right now. We have heard a rumor that there is one ring between Hal and John. And again, I want to emphasize this is a rumor, and that Hal is training John to take over as the Earth Lantern. And that kind of plays into the idea of when we saw in the trailer the car go off of the cliff, is Hal trying to train John to use that ring, and that Hal is going to somehow later on exit the show. And whether permanently or not, I don't know. But that's just one rumor that's out there. Although you and I have talked, and we've also heard Tom King say that at one point he saw both Hal and John with rings during the filming.
Right, he was on set, and he talked about them both having the rings.
Yes.
And so, I don't know if that necessarily quells the rumor, or maybe the rumor is somewhat misinterpreted. Like maybe they start with one ring, but then as we go, John gets his ring. But I mean, if Tom King is saying he saw them both with rings, I mean...
And it's like you and I have talked about, rumors abound on the internet about any upcoming project, and a lot of times a lot of it turns out to not be true.
I'm going to trust Tom King just because he's part of the DCU Brain Trust. So, and he says he saw them, so, you know, I'm not his optometrist, but I'm assuming his eyes are good enough that if he says he saw two rings, they exist. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but
the thing is, as a fan who's been waiting so long for any kind of live action treatment for Green Lantern, every little update I get, even if it's much ado about nothing, I'm still very happy that the train is finally rolling, and that this summer we're going to get to see Green Lantern in live action once again.
Right. Agreed. I can't wait for the show. I'm super stoked, and not only am I looking forward to the show, but I'm looking forward to our first full trailer. That's going to be exciting, and you can bet that Donnie and I will be here, and we will have a lengthy episode based on probably what is amounts to 2 minutes or less of a trailer. But we'll do that when there is a trailer to speak of, for sure. Yeah, exciting times in terms of at least the live action, especially the live action front.
Mm-hmm. Also, a little bit of collectibles news. We saw a poster from some kind of toy fair. I heard it was from Germany, but it was the first images from the upcoming Mattel line. And it seems that at least one of the, if not the first wave, one of the early waves will feature Jon Stewart as part of the line. So we'll be getting what looks like around a 6-inch figure of Jon Stewart in this new line.
Yeah, I saw the figures. They look pretty good.
They remind me a lot of somewhere between the old DC Universe Classics and the Total Heroes line. I do want to point out, though, that there have been people saying that Mattel is planning more than one line with DC, that there are going to be like levels of lines, kind of like with the WWE line where they have the basic and the elite and the ultimate, that we may be getting the same treatment with DC figures.
Interesting.
Yes. And I would love that. The idea that we would get like an ultimate equivalent for some Green Lanterns with all kinds of constructs and variants and things like that. I'm all for that.
So needless to say, you're going to be in on this toy line at some point, one way or the other.
Without a doubt. By the way, if you haven't checked out my YouTube channel lately, I just did a review on the Page Punchers Hal Jordan from McFarlane.
Nice. Yes. I gotta watch that one. But yes, I saw it pop up in my YouTube feed, and I'm eagerly anticipating checking that one out for sure. But I think that's all we have for news, really, right? Right, Donnie?
Yes, not an overabundance, but nonetheless some very exciting things.
All right, so we'll take a quick break, and then on the other side we'll come back, and we'll talk. I believe it's Green Lantern 30.
Green Lantern number 30, and then we will talk Green Lantern Corps number 12.
Sounds like a plan, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Don't go anywhere. And we're back.
We are, and as promised, it's comic book talk time. And we're going to do Green Lantern 30 and Green Lantern Corps number 12. So, Donnie, take it away.
We're going to open with Green Lantern number 30. On the cover is, if you read the previous issue, you know where Hal is going to be. He was headed to Gotham to team up with Batman. And the name of this story is called Frenemies, which I'm not exactly sure that I agree with that. I think that's overstating things just a bit. But nonetheless, I really did like this issue. It was a little more heartwarming than I thought it would be.
I absolutely love this issue. I think ultimately Jeremy Adams really nails the Batman and Hal dynamic.
Yeah, you know, he shows a lot of the fact. I wouldn't call them frenemies as much as two heroes that have very conflicting viewpoints on a lot of things as far as their methodology, but nonetheless, they acknowledge the fact that ultimately they want the same thing. And there's a mutual respect there, despite the fact that they obviously get on one another's nerves from time to time.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Enough to where, you know, if you remember back in Green Lantern Rebirth, where Hal punched Batman, and then not long after that, Hal returned the favor. Batman returned the favor when Hal showed up in Gotham to help him. So they've had their issues at times, but they're also heroes that have a great deal of respect for the commitment that each one has to justice in the world and the universe.
Right. Yeah. It's like I said. I think the frenemies title was overstating it, but I did think that what I found interesting was maybe that's kind of the perspective that Hal thought of it as, maybe going into the issue, but by the end of the issue, Batman makes it clear that that's not the case at all, and that speaks to what you were saying about the heartwarming nature of this issue, and being far more heartwarming than I think either of us or anybody reading would have probably guessed.
Well, the issue opens up with there's a couple in an alley in Gotham, and they're about to be robbed by a couple thugs. And lo and behold, who shows up and says, "Too late for remorse, boys." And it's Batman. And he takes care of the situation in short order, but then he sees a green light above.
Yeah,
And
green
in
bat
true
signal.
Batman style, he says, "Hmm."
Yeah, yeah. A lot of grunting in this episode, in this issue.
And it's actually the bat symbol being thrown up in the sky by a Green Lantern ring. And we see that Hal has made this construct and he's kind of throwing it up in the sky. And Batman arrives on the top of a building and spooks Hal, and he falls off the building, which was a really hilarious visual to start.
Yeah, it was. I was laughing when Batman spooked him and he almost fell off the building. That was pretty funny.
Well, he actually does fall off the building because he has what looks like kind of a traumatic headache, and he sees a vision of Krona. Remember, we saw that previously of basically this Hal version of Krona. Krona, who looks like Hal, like a disfigured Hal, and he has this vision, and he actually falls off the building, and he's not attempting to fly. He looks like he almost passes out, and Batman realizes what's happening, and he saves him and pulls him back.
Right, yeah. You know what this kind of, the whole talk about how I'm mentioning his struggles and something being off.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of remember Spider-Man 2?
Yes.
When Peter was having those emotional issues?
Yes.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, and his powers kind of cut out on him.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of that.
Kind of a mental block. Yeah, and that's a bad deal for a Green Lantern, being that their ring only works when they're concentrating on the ring working.
Right.
And so Hal was very lucky at this point that Batman reacted so quickly.
Yeah.
So when Hal wakes up, he's in the Batcave, and Batman is running some medical tests. And Batman explains that Hal's body is emitting tachyon particles, but he doesn't quite understand exactly what is going on.
And I think this was the moment in the book where Batman's explaining sort of the testing results, and he said, at first I thought it was to do with your massive ego, and then Hal's retort is, this coming from the guy that puts a bat logo on everything?
And I like the fact that Hal's like, so, how's it going? Any new Robins? And Batman's like, please be quiet.
Yeah. Their dynamic was incredibly funny.
Well, and they have to respond to another situation before they figure out what's going on with Hal. And as Batman speeds away, Hal gets into the Batmobile, and he's like, I'm going on a bat adventure, a bat quest, a bat-tastic time. I mean, he's just turning the screws.
Hal's reaction to the Batmobile was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of the time they did the Batman and Ninja Turtles crossover.
Yeah.
And how Michelangelo reacted to the Batmobile.
Well, you've got to assume that the Batmobile in any itineration, and I've always assumed that Batman constantly updates it, that it's going to be on the cutting edge, and that was kind of Hal's reaction to it, is that this almost looks like the controls of a jet.
Yeah, I like that. That's what got Hal excited.
Also an interesting character moment here that Hal points out that he came to Batman because they're not the best of friends, and he wanted a very honest examination of what's going on with him. So smart move by Hal, and again, good character development there.
Yeah, definitely some good character development there. Great stuff.
So Batman finds a cop squad under attack from a criminal gang, and he uses a smoke bomb to disorient these criminals.
Yes, and then...
But it's more complicated than they actually initially think that it is.
It definitely is, but also there's a funny... I'll get to it when you get to it, but there's a funny... again, it goes back to the relationship between Hal and Kyle here.
You mean Hal and Batman?
So Hal... I don't know why.
So you got Kyle on the brain. So do I. That's all right.
Yeah, it was... there was the moment there when Batman throws the smoke bomb that you mentioned. And he's like, how can you see through all that smoke? And he's like, that's the point.
Right.
That I thought was really funny.
So, but then once Hal and Batman, Hal kind of, comes down from the sky. Of course, he's flying at this point. And once they're kind of back in the situation together, there's a large fire blasting machine that resembles the Joker that comes into the picture, and it unleashes a large stream of fire onto the streets. And so we realize this is not just, your regular kind of criminal gang here. And that's some really cool art. And I initially thought, I was like, well, maybe the Joker is involved in this. That turned out not to be the case.
Right.
But nonetheless, I like that.
Right. No, it was a cool image for sure.
And so Hal's able to deflect the fire and throw the machine into the harbor. But just as he does this, the cops and the criminals disappear. And so we realize this situation is like much more complicated and things aren't as they seem.
Definitely not.
So Hal wonders if what they were seeing were illusions. And so he's thinking like maybe along the lines of some magic user, but Batman's like, no, they had a physical presence, meaning that they were like Hal's constructs. Because Green Lantern constructs, although they're made of light, they can replicate any kind of material. So they're there, but they're not just light that you can walk through. If a Green Lantern makes a gun, it's going to fire. If the Green Lantern makes a sword, it's going to have the same weight and possibility and lethality as a sword.
Right.
And so that's what they were encountering with these things.
Which was odd because it's like, okay, where's this? Well, how is this happening? Where's it coming
Yeah,
from?
I mean, they the story kind of sets us up to believe that these are just kind of the normal criminal operations in Gotham, but it turns out to be much more than that.
What villain could this be?
Yeah. So Batman realizes that it's actually a child, a telepath.
That was an interesting twist I wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm. It's a child named Samuel. And he's actually a hospitalized child who his parents took him there, but he says, I'm very upset because I don't get any visitors. He feels isolated.
Yeah, because basically his family can't afford, or they need to pay for the surgery, but they need to work to be able to afford it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's there on his own. And so he's scared, and that's why he's creating these visions, these, however you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. And how he teaches Samuel the importance of confronting his fears. And he constructs a roller coaster so Samuel can have some fun. And in my favorite moment of the book, he's like, not everything needs to be scary. And he constructs a top hat and a mustache on Batman. And I laughed out loud when I first saw it.
Yeah, the art was really good on that too.
And you can just see Batman's like Green Lantern.
And it's funny because when the kid's saying he had fun, and he's like, yeah, even Batman cracked a smile, I think.
And you can see that Samuel really enjoyed the top hat and the mustache. So.
Yeah. I did too. I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah. So they're able to, introduce a little joy to Samuel and understand what's happening. And later on, Batman and Hal have a conversation, and Batman is like, you handled that very well. And he actually admits that he does care about Hal. Maybe they're not the best of friends. Maybe they're not like, he and Barry or he and Ollie, but he does care about Hal as a hero.
Yeah, I really liked that whole conversation about, Batman admitting that he does care and that, they have a lot more in common than either of them believed, in the sense that they both lost their father.
They point out that they both had very serious childhood traumas, and that their main motivation is that they don't want other kids to go through that.
Yeah.
They want to try to save, kids the lifetimes of pain that each of them have gone through.
I really loved that moment. That was a great moment in the book. Yeah. It's fantastic. And then, even as we get closer to the end of the book, right, where Batman, tells, given whatever he's going through, Batman tells how, just be careful while you're figuring things out. He's like, I tell you to be careful while you're figuring things out, but he's like, I know that's not your style. So he's like, just make sure you come back.
Yeah. And he actually says, I wouldn't want the planet to lose one of its greatest heroes.
Yeah. So I thought that was great.
The action doesn't stop, because literally as Batman is taking his leave, within a couple of panels, we see that Hal gets a transmission through his ring, and it's the Flash, who is in obvious, some kind of peril himself.
Right. So we'll see what happens there. That's a very interesting setup for next issue. I'm looking forward to that.
Like I said, even though it's different than what Kyle was going through back in the 90s, this reminds me a little bit of A Hero's Quest, where Kyle was going around and kind of wanting various established heroes to train him. This is kind of, Hal coming back to Earth and reconnecting, but looking for help in a different kind of way. So, like I said, it's not the same, but I still see a little bit of echoes of that old story.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is, if you look at all the human Green Lanterns, the point is, they're going through something, even with this wish fulfillment MacGuffin that they have. They still all go through trials and tribulations, and that's.
Well, remember, being a Green Lantern is about overcoming fear.
Yeah.
And that's not just a one-time thing. It's not like they do that and then you graduate and forever you have those abilities to overcome fear. It's something that they do on a regular basis.
Yeah. So that's what I appreciate about it, is that they all go through their own unique trials and tribulations.
And like I said, I really like, you and I were talking just before we started. I like the fact that you have Hal back on Earth dealing with this situation, and it gives us one flavor. And at the same time, the Green Lantern Corps book is giving us something completely different.
Right. So do you want to rate this now, or do you want to rate them both after we do them both?
Nah, it's your call. You let me know. What do you want to do?
Well, we can do them both at the end.
Okay. So, Green Lantern Corps number 12.
And this is a story called Seek and Destroy. And it opens up on the Procyon system, and we see two characters that we saw in the previous issue, and that is Enquar, the water character that we were introduced to before, as well as Fatality. And what we see is that Enquar is trying to convince Fatality of his plan, and he goes back to his old planet and basically reinfects it with his presence. And he says, with one world restored, it's time to ravage another. And the planet is actually moving at this point under his will. Now, back on Oa, and remember, we have multiple cores operating at the same time. Guy and Kilowog are still teaching the new recruits.
Yes.
And they use the phrase construct crutches, which I thought was a little weird. I think what they mean is more go-to constructs.
Yes, that's what.
So kind of your fail-safe. So I would have chosen different words, but at the same time, I get where they were going.
Yeah, no, I got what they meant. You're right. It's like your go-to sort of, or you're almost like when I started to try to rationalize what they were saying. It's almost like you know your go-to comfort food, right?
Right.
That's the kind of thing, right? So the construct would be their go-to, their favorite construct or their preferred construct or whatever. But
right.
Yeah, I get what they were. Yeah.
Or if you put it in like battle terms for like a boxer or a competitive fighter or something like that, your bread and butter combination or
right.
The move that gets you the most points in a wrestling match, something along those lines.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But then Jessica appears to all of these cities across Oa, Malachite, Ural, Xanthus, and Zarin, as well as the island of Sandron, and there is an emergency happening. And it's not long after that we learn that Oa is under attack by Larfleeze, who has his battery. And of course, he's been plotting all along, as you would expect. He's never satisfied with what he has. He always wants more, and he's been plotting to take Oa.
And he seems like he's got a workable plan.
Mm-hmm. And as he says, your leaders are gone, leaving Oa ripe for the taking.
And you know what I found also, Jessica's speech to all the different corps about putting aside their different ideologies and using their different approaches and working together, because their energies, their lights are stronger together. I thought that was very well put and very poignant.
Well, and that's a good point. I mean, they have spent most of, in the last 20 years fighting amongst themselves. And even though they have some different ideologies, if they could put those aside and learn to coexist, they would have a lot less casualties. And they could continue, they could continue as ring wielders. But we also know that those ideologies are so different that they eventually are going to come into conflict. And I'm not surprised that one of the first villains kind of to break the truce, one of the first characters to break the truce, was Larfleeze, even though he hasn't always been completely villainous. But here we see him infect the consciousness of some Thanagarians, and things end up in just a full-blown battle.
That was pretty wild. Visually, I thought that looked great.
But the new recruits jump into the battle, and of course, they use their construct crutches, as they were mentioned earlier on. And I like the fact that Aya uses the interceptor.
Right. That's her.
You would think, that was as much a part of her, the ship itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So some really interesting battle scenes here, including Joe making a giant T-Rex to fight Larfleeze. And I'm like, well, that's a cool visual.
That is always a cool. Anytime you have a giant T-Rex, it's the book is going to be entertaining.
And Larfleeze is all charged up and again very destructive. And interestingly enough, it also says nearby that John goes to check on Katma, and she appears, at least this is how I'm looking at it, she's kind of infected by his energy too, by Larfleeze's energy, I mean. And
that's a good point.
yeah, she was like, she looks at John and she says, John, we came here, you promised me nothing would change, but all you've done is leave me alone while you do what you want. What about what I want? So that sounds like greed to me. And she is kind of bathed in orange light here. So that's what I was thinking, is that Larfleeze somehow infected her too.
That's a really good point, yeah.
Yeah. So John's able to put her into stasis and say, when this battle's over, I'll come back and deal with this.
Right.
So the Indigo tribe, they're able to help the battle by encouraging Aya to use her powers here. And we see that the Indigo tribe, they're all meditating and using their alien language. And as Aya is doing this, she uses her energy twin to exit her body. And as that's going on, she sees that that's not the only problem they have, because the energy planet, or the planet that Enquar had earlier in the book, is actually headed straight for Oa.
Right.
And it says next month, war for Oa.
Almost like that's a cool image when you read the words "a planet is coming for Oa" and you see the visual of that. It's like you can sense what's the word I'm looking for? You almost get a sense of, I don't know if this is the right way of putting it, like a visual claustrophobia. As you see the image of another planet coming.
They're definitely upping the stakes here with
absolutely
with Larfleeze attacking on the surface, and then this thing happening outside. They are all going to have to work together if they're going to quell that uprising with Larfleeze and at the same time protect the planet.
And again, what I think is great really is sort of the having both of these Green Lantern books where, in the Green Lantern story was very Earth-based, grounded, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this, which is the grand scale space opera of it all. So you really are getting both flavors in both books, and I really like that.
Yeah, for people who like a certain type of story better than the other, and for people who like a story like you're talking about, more of an Earth-based character development story, you have that with Green Lantern. At the same time, with Green Lantern Corps, we have all of these characters that became a staple during Volume 4, as well as Green Lantern the Animated Series, all kind of back. And we even have some new characters. And so if you want that grand scale battle, that's what this title is giving you.
Absolutely. 100%. No, I thought, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed both. And the Green Lantern corner of my reading routine never seems to disappoint, especially lately. And we're a year into Green Lantern Corps, and we're over 2 years into the Green Lantern book, and again, I've enjoyed and been entertained and riveted by both books. So
really doesn't seem like we've been with this new Green Lantern title for that long, but you're right. Here we are 2.5 years into it.
Yeah. I thoroughly am enjoying both of these books, and then you throw in the Absolute title as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of fun. And so, I mean, we're absolutely winning as Green Lantern comic book fans, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But with all that said, let's go ahead and rate.
Also need to just point out really quickly, the Green Lanterns were a part of DCKO as well.
Yes.
So I've read the first few issues that are out of that. So
yeah, we're gonna do a coverage of the full the full DCKO story once it's finished. Donnie and I will sit down and do a proper review of that. Not all the tie-ins. I mean, we'll cover obviously the Green Lantern one, and I'll give a brief summation and touch on Nightfall, which is the Batman portion of it all. But for our coverage purposes, it'll be the main book.
yes.
That Donnie and I will cover on the show. So stay tuned for that. But before that, obviously, let's rate the two issues we talked about today. You call me a homer, call me whatever you want. I'm going to go 5 out of 5 story and art for both. I really had a blast reading these two issues.
I'm going to agree with you mostly. I'm going to give both of them writing the 5. For Green Lantern Corps, I'm also going to give the art a 5. Lots of characters. The coloring was great in this. Again, lots of really cool constructs. The only reason why I'm going to take half a point off for Green Lantern number 30 is I'm a stickler for Hal always having white eyes when he has his mask on. And there were several panels where you could see his eyes through the mask, and that always kind of bothers me. So
okay, fair enough. Yeah.
I know people are going to be like, oh, they're going to roll their eyes at me, but that's just how I feel. So
no, it's fair. That's.
I like the mystery of the white eyes. I always have. So
right. That's a fair point. But there's our take on these two issues. Hope you enjoyed the episode. It's always fun, as I said, to sit on with Donnie and discuss all things Green Lantern. So it's fun to do, and we'll be back again next month to do more of it. But if you want to talk more Green Lantern with either Donnie or myself, you can on social media. Donnie, where do they track you down?
you can find me on Blue Sky, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and of course YouTube as the Emerald Enthusiast. Please check out my many reviews there. I would certainly appreciate it.
I'm at Adam_LeafSfan on the hellscape known as X, or as I like to call it, Twitter. I'm also on Blue Sky. We do have a Facebook group for the podcast. I will give you the description, or I will put the link in the description, excuse me. You can click on that and I'll add you there if you so choose. But until next time, remember that Green Lantern is forever. From the first time Hal quips about Batman's need to put a bat on everything, to the last. So long, everybody.
Figure out your construct crutches, poozas.